my name's Burgess-Manning. In this series of videos, I'm going to take you through some ideas for working with children and families in post-disaster situations. I'm a psychologist and I was part of a team working with children and families on post-disaster anxiety resources. This is the second video of the series. In the first video, we looked at symptoms of anxiety that you might see in your children or yourselves and how to deal with these from a psychological perspective. What we've found to be helpful is that people talk about three things. The first is connecting with others, being around people. The second is specific psychological strategies that they can use with their children or themselves. And the third is physical or spiritual self-care strategies. So in this video, we're going to look at some physical and spiritual ways to manage anxiety. We're going to talk to an expert on mindfulness. We're going to hear some family views about how they coped. And we're going to look at some practical methods for managing on an everyday basis. So we know from research that there are some things that you can do that will support your brain health to alleviate symptoms of anxiety, and even there is some research that says these may prevent some mental health issues. And those things are simple things like sleeping well, eating well, and making sure you get some sunshine and exercise.
It was a bit of a baptism of fire. I had to learn very quickly before my kids were into that crazy sort of age to moderate my behaviour and help them to moderate theirs. We talked a lot about, how things do feel overwhelming and how sometimes we can't control a situation, which we probably would never have discussed until they were a lot older and were going through things in their own lives.
Managing my worries and making sure that I've eaten well and I've slept well, and if I've done those things, then I've got more time and energy to make sure that my children are slept well and eaten well.
I'm a walker, and so I would just get my sneakers on and I'd just start walking the blocks, and away I'd go, and by the time I got back everything seemed so much better. And I still do that to this day. I'll just get out and go for a walk.
Neave is an expert in mindfulness. This is a technique that seems old but has been recently developed. She's a Gestalt trained psychotherapist with over 20 years experience in the field. Neave, it's lovely to be here today with you. We're going to talk a little bit about mindfulness today, so thanks for letting us come to this. We're in a beautiful setting here, and I think we're going to have a good conversation about what mindfulness is and how it might help.
Yeah, great.
So I wonder if you could start and tell us a little bit about that, about what mindfulness is.
Mindfulness is, yeah. Well, if we were just to describe it really simply, we'd say it's about being aware of what's happening right now.
Yeah.
So, and to be aware in a way in that we're not judging what's happening, we're just being curious and bringing a kindness to our experience.
Right.
So we want to notice what's happening in my body right now, what can I feel?
Yeah.
And then what sort of thoughts am I having, and how is that for me? Do I want to keep having those sorts of thoughts? And then what emotion is here, and can I allow the emotion to be here? And it's like allowing it without having to fix ourselves or do anything about it.
It sounds like being a kind of a spectator to yourself.
Yeah.
Like you can watch things happening rather than reacting as they're happening.
Beautiful.
Is that right?
That's exactly it.
Right.
And that's exactly what we're doing. So often what happens is we have an experience and we react straight away. And so it feels like the experience and the reaction just go together like that.
Yeah.
And so with our mindfulness practice, we have an experience, but we're starting to watch it, as you said. And so we want to notice, so what just happened in my tummy just then? Or what thoughts just came? Or how do I actually feel? And when we name it and we start to notice it and be curious about it without pushing it away, we create this space, this gap. And then we can respond over here. And so we have an experience and we start to watch the impact of that experience, and then we have a space where we can actually settle again, and then we can choose our response.
So it sounds like a kind of calming space rather than a worked up, tuned up space, which might come if you are reacting as you're feeling or thinking.
Yeah, absolutely, right? With our mindfulness practice, because we practice breathing and noticing our body and coming to our breath as like a safe place to come, we can just take a deeper breath in that moment, let the belly move, and that just helps to start switching on this calming system in the body.
So tell us a little bit more about how that works in the brain.
In the brain is the amygdala, which sits deep in the limbic system, the emotional system. And so when we have an experience, we could think of the amygdala as being like the security guard of the body. It's going to look after us no matter what. And so we go into a reactive mode. So we might be a fighter, or we might be a freezer, or fight, flight, freeze, our general patterning. And so it's good to know what you are. Like, I'm a fighter, so I'll tend to gear up and think, right,
so the adrenaline starts to go
and I get right, I'm going to do something. So I now know the feeling of that in my own body, and I think, oh, something's happening right now. And I don't actually have to let it take me over, but I can breathe and I can calm myself again, and then I can make a decision about what I might want to do in that situation. The wonderful thing about the breath is it's always with us. I like that as a wee joke. If it's not with us, something else is happening.
That's true.
So most of us, many people, and especially when you're feeling worried or anxious, you start to shallow breathe. And so you're breathing up in the chest, and that is the activation of the sympathetic nervous system. So you could think about that as, I say, it's like being on the go-go. You're just all fired up and it's all just happening. And you could think of it as like having the accelerator down. And what we want to do is we want to put the brake on. And so we want to breathe so that our breath deepens, and what we want to do is we want to relax the belly. So often when we're concerned and worried, we're holding the belly in. So we just sit and we let the belly soften. And kids can do this on the floor as well, and they could have a little toy sitting on their belly so that they can see when the belly starts to move.
Going in and out.
So what we're wanting to do is we want the diaphragm to start working, because that's our natural breath. Our state of rest is when we're doing diaphragm breathing. So relax the belly. You can put your hands on your belly, and then when you breathe in, you feel the belly grow a little bit bigger, and when you breathe out, you feel it empty. And the movement's not up in here, it's down here in the belly area. So breathing in, feeling the belly expand, and breathing out, feeling it empty. And you can breathe in and out through the nose, or nose and mouth, it doesn't matter. It's not a problem to have a thought come into your mind, it's all good. And then we just gently bring the awareness back to the breath. We might name that thought, so if we're worrying or we've got something on at school or work, we can just say school, or mind is wandering, and then back to the breath. And we're just interrupting the thinking patterns. We want to just keep interrupting them.
Gives you a break from the thoughts.
It's like we talked before about the neural pathways. We have a neural pathway for our worrying thoughts and our anxious thoughts. And so the more we think them, the stronger the neural pathway, it myelonates and it becomes really strong. And so it's a quick jump to that thought pattern. And so we're wanting to interrupt that thought pattern and create a new one, which is, can I feel my breath? Can I feel my belly moving? Can I feel my back moving as I breathe? And what about my heartbeat?
Now you've brought along a mindfulness jar as well. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
So this is one way to work with children, but I always think everything we do with children is good for us too. So it's a nice way to represent when everything feels a bit crazy inside. So lots of thoughts and lots of emotions and lots of feelings in the body going round and round, and it can feel like that. And so we feel like this, and so
perhaps not so shiny though.
Yes, maybe not. And so we can use this with children, because they can go and get this and shake it and go, this is how I feel right now. And we say, well, what do you need to do with this? How would we make this stop? What does it need? What do I need to do to make this all stop? And we say, well, we need to put it down. And so we place it down, and then as we watch it, we can do our belly breathing, our soft belly breathing.
As you're breathing, it slows down.
Yeah.
Just like your mind calms with the breathing.
Absolutely. And that's really what we're doing in our mindfulness practice, is we are acknowledging, allowing, and coming to the breath. Yeah. So we don't have to get rid of any of that. We can just let it settle.
Let it be there.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about the evidence for mindfulness? How do we know that it works?
There is lots of evidence for mindfulness, which is
Great.
fabulous.
Yeah.
A wonderful, wonderful man, John Kabat-Zinn, started an 8-week course called MBSR, Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction, at the University of Massachusetts Medical School 30 years ago. And basically, they were given all the patients that nobody knew what to do with them anymore. So chronic pain, illness, diseases that were not going to get better.
Wow.
And so he wanted to bring something to these people that would support them and help them be with what was happening for them. And so he created this 8-week program, and it just flourished and it grew, and now there's a whole big school there. It's a huge part of the medical school there, and the research on how people could successfully work with pain and decrease their pain was one of the first things that came out. And the immune system is strengthened through the mindfulness practice. So this calming system switches on in the body, and the immune system can work.
Oh, isn't it crazy?
Yeah. And you think
crazy.
about
It's
all
fabulous.
Yeah, and you think about all the other processes in the body that can just do what the body does beautifully when it's not stressed.
Yeah.
So stress is so destructive to our body health.
Would you tell us a little bit about how it's relevant for families who might be having a child with some anxious feelings and thoughts?
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful way to work with children, because often when our children feel anxious, we want to sort it out and fix it and get rid of it. We don't want them to be experiencing that. So we try and do things to make it go away. But with a mindfulness practice, remember, we want to be with what is happening. So we actually just open the conversation up to what are they thinking? So what is the worrying thought that they're having? And then how's it feel in their body? So does it in their tummy, or are they shaking, or they feel it in their legs? And kids are amazing at telling you where they feel their emotion in the body, because we want them to feel it. And then we can think about allowing them to be with it in a way that is normalising that experience, and then they could come to their breath.
So they don't have to push it away. They're just, you're getting them to notice it and be with it.
Be with it.
And sit there for a little bit and not freak out and go away, kind of avoid it. Or
it doesn't have to overwhelm them. It could be something that occurs, just like anything that happens to us.
So this is a normal kind of process of living, that you have these emotions and these feelings. So thank you, Neave. It's been really interesting. I've learned a lot about that, and I might have to go home and get my kids to do that with me. That would be a really cool thing to have going on in our house, I think. But thanks for your time today. It's been enlightening.
Yeah, great.
So often after a big event, we feel unable to do these things that we know are good for our well-being. I know what it's like to feel like sleeping to escape the distress of a big event. The busyness of your mind, you just want it to shut down. You want to get away from managing your own and others' emotions, from the practical tasks you need to do, and from the rehashing that goes through your mind all the time of that event. We know that when we look after our minds, that our bodies relax, and when we look after our bodies, our minds have less of a chemical overload. And just like on the plane when you're told to put the oxygen mask on, we know that if we look after ourselves first, then we're better able to look after other people. And then you know that those words you don't want to come out of your mouth will come out less, so your relationships remain undamaged. And you know that you have a calmer self to work with. So that technique of mindfulness or meditation is really useful to distance yourself from those distressing emotions. So that was our second video, and now we're going to go on and do a third video that will look at the importance of community. So we'll see you there.